Right, for the recording. Welcome back. We are ACI Course 7, Class 3, January 26, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep in our hearts, we know that's possible. Understanding a little about karma and emptiness, we get a glimpse of how it's possible. And so we grow our wish into a longing, and that longing into an intention. Then turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. Okay. Last class, we learned about those 3 different types of morality in order to better understand the basis from which we can grow our bodhisattva vows. And if you recall those 3 different kinds of morality, well, let's do it this way. Consider those 3 kinds of morality. They are the behaviors towards our lama, the behaviors towards our teacher, and our parents, and the behaviors towards everybody else, right? Come on. No, Flavia says no. Oh, so there's more than 3 moralities. Is that what you mean? No. So there's 3 different moralities than that. Is that what? Oh, you said yes. Once you say yes, you get to answer. Flavia, what do you say are those 3 levels of morality?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So it's Praktimoksha vows or individual freedom. So those are the vows that if you keep them, you get to be free. Bodhisattva vows, which are the vows that you do to help every living being. So you want to get enlightened for the benefit of every living being. And the third one is the tantric vows, which is the fast method. So you try the fastest methods so you can do it in one lifetime.
So you're saying the 3 different levels of morality are those 3 different vows, which means if you don't have vows, you're not keeping any morality at all, right?
Well, no, because morality in this context means something different. In this context, morality means that whatever you do is whatever you're gonna get. So it's different than having a moral compass.
Okay.
This needs wisdom too.
Okay. So there are 3 different reasons that we apply to our behaviors that make up the three levels of morality? Shayla says yes. So Shayla gets to describe what are those three?
The first one is to restrict bad actions.
Okay.
The second one is accumulate virtue or merit.
Right.
The third one is to do both of those, but for the benefit of every single being.
Perfect. Yes. Yes. So Flavio, you were not incorrect, but you gave a right answer to a different question. So no worries. So then we also learned these four wonderful qualities of the Bodhisattva vows, which still you know the four I'm talking about. How they're quite qualities of the vows, I don't understand, but give me those four. Who can give me one of them? Ras.
Yeah, so the first quality is we take it from somebody who is really dear to our heart and who has all the qualification, and we look up to him.
Yeah,
So we try to keep this vow, and when we are close to breaking the vow, then we just stop ourselves and we think of the person, how much we will disappoint him or her.
perfect. Who can give me a second one? Olga.
Are done with pure intention, meaning that you have like the intention to help all living beings, and when you're about to break the vow, you just recall that intention, and yeah.
Nice. And who can give the third one? Julia, thank you.
Vows are fixable. So if you
Yay.
break the vow, vows can repair and fix.
Right. So it encourages us to try even if we're gonna fail, right? That's a big piece. And the fourth one. I have a finger, I'm not afraid to use it. Oh, Linson.
So if we do the first two well, we wouldn't break it in the first place.
Exactly. How is that a quality of the vows? I don't know, but it's something to know. So good, thanks. Yes, Mike's hands up. Is there a fifth one?
No, I have something completely different for this.
Oh,
It was the morality is accepted from others in an excellent way. Motivation is for taking it on is extremely pure. If one fails in morality, one can recover. One can develop a sense of reverence for the morality and a sense of maintaining and preventing oneself from failing.
yeah. So that's from the reading, right? And those all are saying the same thing, right? Geshe-la describes those four in this way to help us relate to them. So yes, you are correct. Good. So lastly, on your quiz, what did Jetsun Kappa say about the idea that practitioners of the secret way don't have to follow their other two sets of vows anymore? Yes, Olga.
That I don't remember the exactly phrase in English, but it's like a completely mistaken idea that it's like a torment that cuts the happiness of all beings.
Yeah,
That this only shows misunderstanding on the inferior and superior teachings that must be put it in the garbage.
exactly. Nice. Thank you. Yes, Luisa's hand is up.
I have a question that I have been thinking of with this, and is okay. We say that nothing is good or bad in itself, like there is no bad deed or good deed, that it depends on the result that it brings to my life, right?
Right.
But then when we read the vows or the, let's say, the 10 non-virtues, then they are expressed in a way that, in my understanding, implies those actions are per se in it from them, in them from them, bad, right?
There's-
Like, and
There's
I
something about
cannot,
the words that says that.
sorry,
There's something about the words that says that.
like not killing, right?
Right.
So then it implies that killing another being is bad, and
Right.
then somehow it makes me think, okay, there is some nature in the action that will bring me suffering. And yes, the Buddha knows what will bring me, but then it also gives this or it makes me, how to say, it makes me think how to understand, apply emptiness to the vows. Like apply emptiness to actions that appear to be
Right.
wrong
Right.
in themselves.
Right. And your conclusion would be, oh my God, I've got to keep from killing anybody. When we understand the emptiness of killing, it doesn't negate it. It makes our understanding of why to avoid killing others with greater intensity, greater strength.
But it's because I am assuming that killing is wrong. I mean,
No,
that there
it's
is
because
something bad.
when you get killed, you will not like it. When you get stolen from, you will not like it. That's why they're the 10 non-virtues.
But it could happen that someone who wants to die would say, if I get killed, then I would like it. Right? I don't know. I am just
Right,
cooking
and
that.
they still go through the pain of death and forced rebirth.
But that pain is also empty, no?
It is. But see, I'm feeling that when your mind hears something as empty, it makes it unreal or less real or inconsequential. And that's a common automatic result of thinking of emptiness, and it's mistaken.
Okay. Thank you, Lama.
Yeah. That's why we study. Right? It's not easy to understand. All right, so all that class was supposed to be about selling us on the worthiness of Bodhisattva vows as something to learn about, at least, and maybe even someday decide we want to commit ourselves to. So then our next question would naturally be, when I'm ready to get my vows, how do I do it? What do I do? Yeah. And then taking these vows, the process is swearing before somebody in person and a whole lot of others who are there, but we probably don't see them, swearing to work diligently to become a Buddha so that we can help others in that deep and ultimate way. And that means we're really committing ourselves to a set of behavior avoidances. And so learning to do their opposite based on this state of mind, this state of heart that we're calling bodhicitta. So in the course of our career, we've been loading the term bodhicitta with more and more understanding, deeper and deeper levels of what it means. I want to reach total Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. That form of the wish, called the deceptive form of the wish. It's not deceptive, it's probably the most amazing truism you ever said to yourself. But it's in deceptive reality. It's an appearing set of words that we give meaning to. So it's called deceptive bodhicitta. And then ultimate bodhicitta, meaning that wisdom of the direct perception of emptiness while we're in it, and then after we're out of it. We're not seeing it directly anymore, but we still have the influence on our mind, which now influences our deceptive bodhicitta, doesn't it? But then there's another way to divide bodhicitta that we heard about last week, or maybe the week before, or the class before, called the wish in the form of a prayer and the wish in the form of action. So Munsam is the wish, Sam, in the form of a prayer. Munlam is the prayer. So my guess, when you see I have a hyphen, it means this is a contraction, right? A shortened form. And so my guess it would be Munlam Semke. Semke being the wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, Sam, and Munlam being a prayer. So one way to divide bodhicitta is by way of the wish in the form of a prayer, meaning I really, really do want to learn and become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. But wanting to and setting about to do it are two different things. So the Munsam might be like, gosh, it would be really nice to take a vacation to Hawaii. And I can think that every day and never actually book any tickets or pack my bags. And it would be sweet, but if I never act on it, nothing much is gonna happen. So it's to have the Munsam bodhicitta, the heartfelt wish to reach total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, even if we don't do anything significant with that, it's still a major breakthrough in the quality of our heart mind. Juksam means our bodhicitta in the form of action. So it seems like it would mean the wish to act like a Buddha, which if it was just the wish to act like a Buddha, to become a Buddha, that doesn't necessarily mean we ever do anything about it either. So here Juksam means because of my Munsam, my wish to reach Buddhahood, I've grown in my capacity to implement that wish. And now I'm going to act according to those behaviors that have been set forth for us to show us what to avoid and so what to take up in order to plant the seeds that when they ripen will be the ripening of movement along the path to that total Buddhahood, because that's what's motivating us in everything that we do. Once we take our munsem and activate it by changing our behavior. So we can activate our bodhicitta using the guidelines of the Bodhisattva vows, even before we take the vows to do so. And we'll get goodness, lots of goodness. We can even activate our behavior changes and not do a very good job at it. And the scripture says we're still making greater goodness than someone who neither activates their bodhicitta nor has bodhicitta. So to be a lousy bodhisattva is better than no bodhisattva at all, which is kind of helpful. Hopefully it will help us be less tentative in taking our bodhisattva vows, right? If we're thinking, oh, I can't possibly keep these well, so I won't take them. Scriptures, Buddha, lamas are saying, no, if you want to try, then trying is better. Trying and failing is better than not. So that's supposed to help us. So what is it to have munsem and juksem? Geshe-la says, true munsem is when we encounter any being, we have this reaction to them as if they are our most precious child. And he said, any being we perceive, every driver whizzing by the highway, every bug that gets smashed on every windshield of every driver, every ant crawling around in your bathroom sink, right? Every cockroach on your kitchen counter. Oh, my only child, I love you so much. I want you to be happy. Here, little ant, can I feed you? What can I feed you? What would you like? Like, truly, do we have that? It's hard enough to get the little ant out of the sink before you turn the water on with a little kindness. The first 50 ants, okay. But after that, come on, right? Right? We lose our patience. True munsem wouldn't. There's another one. Another only child, oh my gosh. Right? It's hard. It's hard to conceive of. We cultivate that by understanding those beings' situation. And there are different levels of understanding those beings' situations. We don't actually know what they're perceiving themselves as, do we? But if we decide, well, I don't really know of that ant of suffering, and so come to the conclusion, so it doesn't matter that I turn the water on, right? We're misunderstanding our misunderstanding of what they're perceiving themselves as. I don't know what they're perceiving themselves as. What I do know is that I'm perceiving them as this little teeny ant who's at the mercy of this giant, right? And the elements. And it can't be nice for anybody to be going about your business, minding your own business, and all of a sudden get washed away by a flood. And I don't know, maybe they want to get washed away by a flood. But if it was me in their shoes, I don't think I'd like it. And so I shouldn't do it to them. All right, that's the basis of considering their situation. Yes, they're empty of self nature, so I don't know. But because of that, I want to be kind to them, more kind to them. So Munsam is this, I wish I could do something to help beings get out of this mess. Like I have some inkling of how it is possible to stop all this suffering. And I want them to know it. I want them to be able to do it. Then the juksem is the actually doing something about it, doing something to help them. And it may or may not be in the moment with the ants in the bathroom bowl. I mean, we try and probably will fail with some of them. But everything else we do is also being done in order to help those ants and the drivers whizzing along, even though they're not in our immediate experience, they've become part of our world because we saw them once. So now our bodhicitta wish includes them more and more tangibly. So real Munsam is having this deep, deep compassion for any being we see, whether they're in obvious suffering or appear to be having, a nice lunch. We know it's going to end. And all of them in the desire realm are experiencing that aging, illness, death, and forced rebirth. So by way of the 4 sufferings, we know what they're experiencing. And we know at the end of those 4, they have the sufferings of death and what comes later, which probably is going to be worse than what they're in now. So all of that hopefully opens our hearts instead of shuts them down. And we're wanting to grow this state of heart to be more and more constant in us. Petra was one of the retreatants during Geshe Michael Chrissy's great retreat. Now she's Venerable Petra. And she used the phrase, getting my bodhicitta to be my permanent address. Instead of now and then going to visit her bodhicitta from time to time, according to the circumstances, she's coming from that space constantly. I loved the phrase. It felt so right. Get my heart in that permanent address, bodhicitta. 85713. So the vows would come in a pattern, in a natural pattern, says Arya Nagarjuna from 200 AD. He wrote the ceremony that we use to give vows and to restore our vows when we've damaged them. And in his discussion of how to give the vows, he actually only talks about how to generate this wish in the form of the prayer, the munsam, and he gives a ritual to take a pledge to generate the wish in the form of a prayer. So you don't actually take vows, but you go before that lama and say, I really, really, really am going to grow this wish so strong in my heart that it's there every moment, like it's coloring everything that I experience every instant. And that state of mind, it will lead us, will inspire us to avoid harming others and to gathering goodness, and doing both influenced by the wish to help all beings stop their suffering ultimately. So to just have this strong bodhicitta is enough for the behavior to take over. So then where do the bodhisattva vows actually come in? And the later commentators on Nagarjuna's ceremony says, look, Nagarjuna, if the one doing the ceremony is intending to devote themselves to growing the wish, then that's what the ceremony empowers them to do. And if that person has already grown their wish, then the same ceremony is empowering them to have the vows come on. So they don't distinguish different ceremonies for the different bodhicittas, same ceremony. Jetsongkhapa still says, look, it still seems like it would be a stronger practice to dedicate ourselves to growing the wish first. And when we feel like we have it strongly, then to dedicate ourselves to taking the actual actions. We're doing the actions while we're growing our wish, of course. But where you don't have the vow component yet, in terms of needing to fix this or restore that. But once we have our confidence, we can go back and establish our behavior as vowed behavior. They say growing your bodhicitta in this way makes it more firm, makes the vows more firm. But as it has evolved, the bodhisattva vow ceremony incorporates both the wish and the action. And so you're swearing to do both in your vow-taking ceremony. Geshe Michael suggested that when a ceremony is being given, it's up to you, the student, to determine whether you're taking it as the wish or you're taking it as getting the vow for action. And nobody needs to know but you. It's helpful in your relationship with the one who's giving the vow ceremony, that if they are also part of your who you go to for advice, to tell them, but they aren't necessarily who you go to for advice. And so you don't necessarily need to declare yourself. It's what you know you're doing yourself. So you yourself need to have it clear when the ceremony day comes along for you. So the scriptures say, look, keeping the vows and doing the acts of a bodhisattva is saying the same thing, right? The behaviors are the same, the behaviors we avoid, and so the behaviors we apply. The additional that are the same. the additional benefit of having vows to avoid those deeds is that we're gathering the goodness of keeping the vow every moment we're avoiding, right? The vowed behavior, as I explained before. Okay, so suppose we feel ready to actually ask for and receive the vow ceremony. It has several parts. It has 3 main parts, and the different parts have multiple parts as well. So here are the 3 parts of the vow ceremony for Bodhisattva vows. There's Jorwa, which is the preliminaries, and there's these 5 different parts to it. There's Nushi, which is the main event. This is the actual receiving of the vows. And there's Jukchok, which is the conclusion. Within Jorwa, the preliminaries, there are these 5 parts. The Jorwa, the preliminaries to the Bodhisattva vow ceremony, is actually more important. It's like the most important part. The Nushi, the actual main event, goes by really quickly. Of course, it's important, but the preliminaries get us all primed and ready for the main event. And then after the main event, this conclusion part is where the vow master encourages us to be happy about our vows, tells us what's happened in the universe because of getting our vows. So we're going to go through each one of these different parts so that you know exactly what's going on as you take your ceremony. Which is, again, the beauty of Bodhisattva vows is we're supposed to study it first. We're supposed to understand the vows and how to repair them and how to keep them so that we can feel ready to actually take the vows. And then when we do, to know what's going to happen in the ceremony. Other empowering ceremonies you don't get to know about beforehand for other reasons, for good reasons. So the first step in the preliminaries in Tibetan is Sowandapa, which means asking the Lama to give the vows and offering a mandala. It's written into the ceremony that one does. So if you're the person coming to take vows, you don't have to bring these papers with you. You don't have to know it. They'll provide you with what you need for all of this. But what will happen is that we'll be instructed to make this formal request. And anytime we request something of our teacher, we make them an offering. You know, yeah, it's like a bribe, but they don't need your bribe. Our own mind benefits from seeing us give them something that's valuable to us in request for them to do what we're asking them to do. Traditionally, we use as the offering what's called the 37 pile mandala, which is a prayer of offering a pure and perfect world that's been made out of the transformation of our mental afflictions. And it's that prayer that has the bowl with the rice that somebody's putting piles of rice on, and then the rings and more piles of rice. And in the end, you've got this wedding cake of rice and jewels and stuff with a diamond on top. And it's a practice. It's a beautiful merit making practice to learn. And it's going to be taught at the Diamond Mountain Retreat in preparation for a mandala festival that we're hoping will become an annual event. If you don't get to go to Diamond Mountain and learn it there, ask for it, right? It's been taught online. You can learn how to do it. So anyway, the first preliminary is asking the vow giving master formally for vows and making an offering of the mandala. And at this point in Tsongkhapa's description of the ceremony, he goes off on an apparent tangent that's not a tangent at all, of course, about who can take the vows, who can give the vows, what should the one who's taking the vows do to prepare, like all the details that we would want to know in order to be properly prepared to go through the ceremony for our vows. So he gives us some really nice Gelukpa lists for those of you who like lists. The vow taker, that means the student. There are certain requirements. 4 requirements. That vow taker may be ordained or not, but they need to be human. So the first requirement of a vow taker is a human who's like ordained or not, doesn't matter. Second, they should have some form of munsam, wish to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Some form of compassion for those suffering beings. Of course, the stronger the better. Third, they must intend to keep those 3 moralities: avoiding harming others, gathering goodness, and doing both for the benefit of all sentient beings. If we have any other intention than that combination of those 3, then we can go through the ceremony and hear the finger snap and not actually get the vows. And how we would know, we'll talk about it more as we get further into this course. And then the 4th requirement is based on one's level of morality going into getting these vows. They should be at the very least avoiding the 10 non-virtues pretty well. So we had heard in a previous class about the eight different kinds of vows. And of those, someone wanting bodhisattva vows should have been practicing any one of the first 7 for some period of time. Like, that's vague, but already having made some efforts to cultivate a stronger morality than ordinary human being morality for some period of time before asking for their bodhisattva vows. And we can see why, because of the goodness done by intentionally avoiding some habit in order to be able to change. It means we've shown ourselves that we can change. which will increase our ability to change more as we take on our bodhisattva vowed behavior. So they say if you're not ordained, you're avoiding harming others. Vows would be the 5 lifetime layperson's vows. And so one can take those 5 first and be working with them before you ask for bodhisattva vows. Our tradition, like, I'm not sure how they're doing it now at Diamond Mountain. I've not been involved. But when Sumati and I were taught how to give the vows, the bodhisattva vows, we were taught when someone takes their bodhisattva vows, they also get their 5 lifetime layperson's vows, whether they want them or not. And they get all 5, not some. So in preparing to take bodhisattva vows, right, who's ever teaching you about the vows for our tradition needs to also include, which we will, about the 5 layperson vows. Okay, so that's the vow taker. Now, the vow giver, they need to have some qualifications as well, both from their side. If somebody says, can you give me bodhisattva vows? They need to check their own heart. Do I have these qualifications to give those vows? And the person asking someone for vows, these are the 6 different things that you would want to spy on them about before you ask them, will you give me bodhisattva vows? Okay. So, vow giver, they may or may not be ordained. They say probably it's better if they are ordained. And I would guess it has to do with them being a more powerful karmic object in our mind, right, as the one coming to them to ask for vows. But it's not necessary, the ordained part. Second, they say it's best if that same person can give you the higher vows later on. So if you're cultivating a relationship with a teacher, and right there, you've got one or more who's helping you go along the path, you're growing this relationship with them. The one you might ask to give you bodhisattva vows, if you have the higher vows in mind for the future, there is some benefit to having them be the one you ask for giving you the bodhisattva vows. You know, again, most of us, you know, we don't know if we're aspiring to the higher vows. We don't know who that person is that's going to give them to us. We don't know. So it shouldn't block us from asking someone who we don't even know if they have the higher vows, right? There's no reason that a student would know whether a teacher has diamond way vows or not. Technically. So then, third, the vow giver can be either a man or a woman. You know, nowadays, let's say anywhere in between. So fourth, they themselves should have some form of the wish. Right? They should have some level of their munlam, their munsen. How are we going to know that? Really by watching. Watching somebody's behavior is the best way to judge. they should be keeping their vows well. Again, if we don't know what vows they have, how are we going to judge whether they're keeping them well or not? We know the 10 non-virtues. They're the basis of every other vow. So we can spy on them and see, does it look like they have this strong morality? And if they have this disciplined morality, I can probably conclude that they are keeping their own vowed morality pretty well. But simply by watching and paying attention. From the vow givers side, if they've been asked, they would need to ask themselves, have I been keeping my morality well enough that I could in fact confer vows on somebody else? And be honest with ourselves. Once we have vows, technically, you can be given permission to give vows once you've been given them. So, it may seem like, oh, giving bodhisattva vows is a long, long way away. When Geshe Michael Lama Christie first came out of their retreat, we formally asked them to be students and to take us into the Diamond Way, and we explained why we felt we were qualified and so forth. And they said yes. And then we were there on the property, and Geshe-la was preparing to teach Uttara Tantra in Tucson before the start of Diamond Mountain's Diamond Way series. So he taught the Uttara Tantra to a bunch of us who were there so that we could be like teaching assistants for when it would be offered in Tucson. And Smati and I were just babies in the whole system. And someone asked Geshe Michael for bodhisattva vows. Well, we already had ours. Someone asked Geshe Michael, would you give bodhisattva vows, before class a couple of days from now? And he looked at the person, he turned and looked at Samati and I and said, they'll give bodhisattva vows on Sunday. And this was like Friday. It's like, what? Like, who were we to give vows? And he said, don't worry, I'll teach you how to do it. And he did, and we did. And then subsequently, we were asked to give refuge, and we were asked the like, once it starts, it starts. And it's shocking when you get assigned that task first. And it wasn't after 3-year retreat, right? It was at the beginning. So don't sell yourself short that maybe somebody's going to come to you someday soon. Can you give me bodhisattva vows? And then you check your heart to see, do I have the goodness that they see in me? Do I see it in me? That I can give bodhisattva vows, and then let me know, I'll teach you how to do it. After you get yours, of course, not before. All right. So they should be keeping their vows well. You have to have vows in order to give vows. Kind of a bottom line rule. Then number 6, this vow giver should be practicing their 6 perfections pretty well. They're working on their sharing. They're working on their moral discipline. They're working on their not getting angry. They're working on their joyous effort. And we should be able to see that happening in someone when we're around them long enough to see them in different situations, right? And that's the tricky part. When most of our teachings are online, you know, it's like, I can be perfect in a little box for 2 hours, but just wait till after I get out of the box, right? You don't know. I mean, I keep my vows pretty well. Anyway, analyze, check, follow, spy. Ask people who study from them. Ask people who are around them. What do they like when nobody's watching? Truly, we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to do that for the person we asked to be our teacher. We're supposed to do that for the one we asked to give us vows. We're supposed to do that for the one who we ask for a higher way as well. So technically, if you try really, really hard, oh wait, there's a seventh one. If you try really, really hard to find somebody who has these qualities and you just can't find one, you can technically put an image of Shakyamuni Buddha on your altar and get your bodhisattva vows through the ceremony from the being that statue represents. So if you're really stuck on a desert island and you're ready for your bodhisattva vows, you can get them. But lamas all say, don't be lazy. Find somebody who's got vows. Find somebody who's giving vows. Get in on the ceremony. Yeah. Okay. So the seventh one. So I have to go back and correct myself. There are 7 qualities of the vow giver. The 7th is they need to know the vows. They need to know the ceremony. They need to know how to give the vows, which includes being able to perceive people's reactions during the ceremony and know how to help them stay on track, and especially know how to do the juke choke, the enthusing at the end, and then afterwards be able to be available to help that student when they need help to stay on track. And so the one you take your bodhisattva vows from would remain available to you. And, you know, if you take it from in a big crowd from somebody you don't really know, and you're going to use them in that way, you would need to remind them, I did bodhisattva vows from you. Can you help me in such a way? And they're not likely to say no. Okay, let's take a break and we'll go back to what the vow taker does to prepare. I need to stop my share and pause the recording. My recording's back on. I'm going to leave my screen share off for a little while. All right, so the next section that Judson Kappa talks about is what should the vow taker do to prepare? So the first thing vow taker does on the day of the ceremony is that you make the place beautiful, clean, nicely decorated, uncluttered. So where you receive your bodhisattva vows, it doesn't have to be in some proper temple or in front of a stupa. Any place can be transformed into the place where your bodhisattva vow ceremony will happen. And although if you're a new student and you haven't learned how to like create a sacred space, then you rely on either senior students or the teacher to show you how to do that. But once you know, or once you're the one who knows, then you do it, right? And you show others how to do it. You don't have to wait for the vow master to come in and say, put this here and that there, right? You've learned how to do it. So first you clean the place, unclutter it, make it lovely. Then you set up a altar. And on that altar for Bodhisattva vows, you have an image of Shakyamuni Buddha. It can be a statue, it can be a thangka. Around it, you can have images of other teachers, other sacred beings as you wish. In front of that image, you put forth the traditional offerings, water bowls representing water to drink, water to wash, flowers, incense, lamps, perfume lotions, delicious food, and beautiful music. You put flowers. It's traditional to have a big bowl of fresh fruit. And you wash the fruit well and dry it before you put it in the bowl. And when you set it in the bowl, you set it with the fruit's flower side up. So you know how the apple has a stem? And when we set an apple on a table, we set it with the stem side up. That means we're putting the flower side down. So the flower opens, right? The pistil and stamen do the thing, and then the apple grows. Right? You know, the apple goes underneath and there's the little, I don't know, sharp points under there. That's the flower side. So when you put it in the bowl, upside down, the orange, right? Where the little green thing is, that's the stem, upside down. It's a little hard with pineapples. They don't stay upside down very well, but stick it in the bowl, right? It seems upside down, but it's right side up. It's flower side up. The flower represents the results of virtue. So the flower is not on there, obviously. But that's where the fruit came from. Do you see the connection? Okay. You set up a seat for the vow giver. They call it a throne, but it doesn't have to be a big fancy throne. They need to be sitting higher than the people who are receiving the vows from them. So if everybody's going to be sitting in chairs, then you need the vow giver, right? Maybe in a chair on something so that they're higher. Okay, so however you set it up, vow giver is seated higher than the vow takers. Then at the beginning of the session of the ceremony, you go to the vow giver and show your respect, which in the Indian tradition from which this came, you prostrate to them and touch their feet. We don't see that happening too much at Diamond Mountain, but you know, having learned it formally, when you go to do your Bodhisattva vows, feel free, right? And it's likely that we'll feel self-conscious about it, and the vow giver may also be startled. But do it anyway, if you wish. Thirdly, you offer the mandala offering, again, that 37 pile mandala. So this is all built into the session. You don't have to personally do it before them. Fourth one, you request the vows 3 times. And again, it's in the ceremony, how to say it, you know, what to do and when to do it. They say in that requesting the vows 3 times, that's the time for us to really feel deep, deep, deep about why we want the vows, our strong intention to try to keep them, right? Understanding that we'll mess up and we'll fix it, but understanding the power of having the vows. We want this really strong feeling within us that I'm setting myself up for walking through that doorway of becoming a Buddha someday. Without really wanting the vows, they aren't gonna grow at the point of the ceremony when they're supposed to grow. Then at the time of the actual event, we'll be instructed to kneel down in front of the vow giver. And one can squat in the chicken squat, meaning you've got both feet and heels on the ground and you're down on your knees. Or you can put your right knee down and left knee up at, you know, like the Catholics do, right? And whichever position you're going to feel more stable and undistracted while you say your repetition and ask for the vows. So you're in that position maybe 5 minutes. So you want to be solid. And then your hands will be in vow taking position, which for sutra is your right hand holding your left. So it's like, here's my right hand holds my left, right? So here's refuge taking position, right? With your palms together and your thumbs inside, right? Do you remember that thing? Here's the church, here's the people, that your thumbs inside. But for vow taking, left goes into right, more like this, right? It's we're asking, and your fist goes at your heart. So you're squatting like a chicken, your hands go in this position, and the vow master is gonna say, repeat after me, blah, 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 blah. And you're holding it and like squeezing it to your heart to keep your heart open and wanting those vows. And right, it's like, you hold it there. I know you can't see me doing it. If I stand up, my blanket's gonna fall off. Okay. All right. Then as soon as that part is done, they'll say, sit down. And you can sit back down. Next, the vow giver's responsibility is before that actual event happens, the vow giver gives a talk about the benefits of vows to enthuse our enthusiasm and our motivation. So the vow giver gives a sermon. Now, the vow giver's responsibility is to write that sermon. So it may be different if you take your bodhisattva vows and you retake them from someone else, which you're welcome to do, to renew them, restore them. Their sermon may be a little different than the one that you heard before. They will always be in some way motivational, based on karma and emptiness and the levels of morality. Right? So when you get to be the vow giver, you get to write your own sermon to enthuse the students. That's kind of fun. I'm going to read my notes. Geshe-la said, scripture says, if you give offerings to all the Buddhas in the universe, that's a great goodness. If you take bodhisattva vows, but then don't even keep them very well, the virtue of just taking the vows is greater than making all those offerings to all those Buddhas by someone who doesn't have bodhicitta. Right? So like I said before, an aspiring bodhisattva who's trying is making greater goodness than someone making offerings, big offerings to lots of Buddhas who doesn't have bodhicitta, doesn't have even, right, a shred of that wish. So really pat yourself on the back for even being in a class that's talking about wanting bodhisattva vows, because you have the seeds for it, you know, and you may not think so highly of yourself, but I'm saying knock that off, right? You're here, you're growing your bodhicitta, and that's a great, great goodness. So vow giver gives the pep talk. Second, they will explain which vows are most serious to break and which are less serious. They're all serious, but some more serious than others. Thirdly, they should try to make the vow taker happy, right? With encouraging words, they'll pump us up about how special we are and the benefits of getting bodhisattva vows. And they'll throw in there, look, because of karma and emptiness, everybody is eventually going to reach the place where they end the suffering of themselves and all other beings. You've heard it now. Why waste your time, right? You've been cursed with knowing where you're headed eventually. You know, you can take 3 times 10 to the 60th countless eons to do it, or you can decide, let's go a little faster. All right. So we've reached the second part of the ceremony, the second part of the preliminary, sorry. What was that first preliminary? The asking the Lama to give vows and offering the mandala, and all that we just heard was Jetsun Kappa's tangent about who can give and who can take those vows. So we're back to the preliminary second stage. Sok. Sok usually means gathering. I'm sorry, not sok. No, it is sok. Sorry, I did a cut and paste and I got these backwards. I'm not going to fix it now, but the order of these is sowa dampap, sok, dompa nirdu guwa, drowa kepa, and ask about obstacles. Look how good our Tibetan's getting. So second one is sok. Sok means collection. It usually means collecting practitioners to have a big party. But here, we're invoking all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come and witness the taking of your vows. So the vow master does this invoking, but they're instructing us to call out to those Buddhas and visualizing them coming from all the directions of space. I don't know about you, but when I call forth the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and I peek, I don't see them there. But I know that they are there because of what it took for them to come to see themselves as Buddhas. And that compassion through which they were able to overcome their obstacles to omniscience responds to my request, and they show up, whether I can see them or not. So when we call forth the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, there they are to witness us getting our vows. Third preliminary is the Domba Yurdu Guwa, this one, number 3. It means we make a verbal request to grant the vows, to be granted the vows quickly. Something about the quickly. It will say, the master will say, repeat after me, and it will be these phrases of asking to be granted the vows quickly, quickly, quickly. Fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, droa kepa means feeling joy. Will be instructed to reflect on the incredible virtue that we'll be able to collect by doing these bodhisattva activities and thus keeping our vows. So really it's by avoiding these bodhisattva, avoiding these behaviors is doing the bodhisattva deeds and keeping the vows. So we'll be instructed to feel joy and eagerness to get the vows because of how much more powerful our seed planting will become once we have those vows. They'll remind us of the marriage of karma and emptiness and how that works so that we can understand what we're committing ourselves to, that the deeds we're going to avoid, and so thus the opposite do, are the deeds that will make our future projections be Buddha me and Buddha paradise emanating, meaning you, the vow taker. Geshe-la said, if we've been studying and practicing Buddhism for a while and nothing particularly special is happening in our lives, then he says, probably we're not tracking our behavior well. We're not keeping our vows well. If we have vows, we're not keeping them well. We're not making this concerted effort to change our behavior based on the instructions given based on seed planting wisdom. Because when we are doing that, it means we're changing our behavior from what we used to do as ignorant, suffering humans to even these little baby steps at behaving differently. And those seeds are so different than what they used to be, that they're shaking loose the old ones and adding to any other new, more virtuous ones. And that has to be reflected in some kind of outer shift in our perception. It doesn't mean, if you're not seeing purple sunsets every day, you're doing something wrong. But, a little magic here and there. Some, what we would usually call a strange coincidence. No, these are results of your practice. It's a matter really of noticing them and giving yourself credit for having created them by a change in our behavior, instead of just going, oh, wasn't that weird, that I ran across that person who, I don't know, whatever the little magic would be for you, happened to mention, I can't think of an example right now, but I think you get what I mean. Magic is probably happening in your life and you're just taking it for some kind of granted and not giving yourself credit for having created that magic by your change of behavior. All right, so the master's gonna get us like, oh boy, my vows are about to come, right? We want that eager, Christmas morning, what's in the package feeling, okay? Next, the vow master asks us about obstacles. So they're going to ask a series of questions. Now, you're not supposed to answer out loud. You're answering in your heart. they'll say, do you really want to be a bodhisattva? Meaning, do you really want to benefit all sentient beings? Even that one, right? Fill in the blank as to who that one might be for you. Bodhisattvas don't leave a single one out. Second question, do you really want to get these vows? Third question, do you understand the vows? Meaning, are you sure you know what you're getting into? Remember, vows are going into your mind stream, not for just this life. These are forever vows. It's a little bit weird. It's like, well, wait a minute. What if I had my bodhisattva vows from before, and then I didn't even meet my bodhisattva vows this lifetime until I was 35? What was happening from, right, from 0 to 35? Was I breaking my vows all those time? Or was I keeping them and I just didn't know it? What's really going on here? And I don't have an answer. Fourth, do you believe you will be able to keep these vows at least a little bit? That's why we learn them, so that we can answer those questions to ourselves. So before you even ask somebody to give you vows, ask yourself those 4 questions. Do I really want to be a bodhisattva? Do I really want these vows for forever? Do I understand them well enough to know what I'm getting into? And do I believe I will be able to keep them a little bit? Now, you can't answer those now because you haven't heard about them yet. But by the end of this class, you'll have heard about them enough to be able to think about it and over time decide. So Lama says, if your answer to those 4 questions are, yeah, pretty well, that's enough for your state of mind to be able to grow and sustain those vows. Yeah, pretty well. That's enough. That's kind of nice. You know, it doesn't have to be, yeah, I'm going to do it perfectly. Just, yeah, I think I can. I want to. I think I can do it. I'm going to try. That's enough. Then we get to the main event. Nushi, the main event. The vow giver, you'll be in your vow taking position. Sorry, I had it wrong. And the vow giver will say to you, they'll tell you what to say, in which you ask the Buddha to understand. No, I'm sorry. I'm at the conclusion. Here it is. The actual event. The vow giver asks you 3 times, do you want these bodhisattva vows? And each time you answer, yes, I do, out loud. If you do, right? If you've changed your mind by now, that's fine. Right? You just sit back down and don't take them. Yes, I do. By the 3rd time, the first 2 times they'll say, you're seeing me, the vow master, as a stand-in for Lord Buddha. And then on the 3rd one, they say, now see me as your vow master. I think that's how it goes. See me as your vow master, and know that when I click my fingers, your vows will turn on. Like they come on like a light in you. And they shine like an aura, you know, within and beyond you. So they get you all prepared. You say, yes, I do. By the 3rd, yes, I do, they snap their fingers. And when you hear the snap, that's the light switch of the vows coming on within you. And then you're supposed to think, wow, I've got my vows. Like, whoa, that most precious thing has just, right, I don't know, bubbled up or been set within, whatever suits you, but you want to really own it strongly. Then comes the conclusion. The conclusion has 4 parts. Conclusion is jukchok. The Lama will instruct you to ask the Buddha to understand that you've just sworn to him or her to become like them. And so you're instructed to face the Buddha image and say to them, I just want to make sure that you know I've just sworn before you to become like you, to become a being who can help all others. And I swear I will keep these vowed behaviors to do so. And then you make 3 prostrations in each of the 10 directions. You go around 3 times, right? To the east, each of the 4 directions, and then forward again and back again. So 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and 3. It's a lot of prostrations. And so you take your time, you're huffing and puffing by the end, that's all right. We're showing our honor to all the Buddhas of all the 10 directions. Next, in the conclusion, the Lama gives a concluding sermon, if you will, where they pump the student up with the benefit of vows. So typically that includes saying how all the Buddhas and all the high-level bodhisattvas have become aware of those who have just received their vows. And they say it's like to get vows sends a shockwave through the universe that's like an earthquake, even in the paradises, you know. So if there was a Buddha or a Bodhisattva who somehow was not attending our ceremony, like, and they were looking the other way, whoa, somebody just got Bodhisattva vows and they're focused right in on you. So just in case there were some missing, they now know you. Right? And we've heard that before. Like when we have bodhicitta, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas know us and they take us into their family and they treat us like their only child, right? Here it happens again. They become aware of us. Omniscient beings know everybody all the time anyway. But it's one thing to be aware of all the faces in the crowd, and it's another to see a face and go, right? Come, friend, like that. We become individually recognized. We've joined the family of the Buddhas, it's called. Right? It's quite beautiful. All right. So they encourage us to take joy. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are like, yay, doing their rejoicing festival. And then we get to do the same. So Lama instructs us to do a Thanksgiving offering to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and the Lama will do it as well, which again, we offer the mandala, the 37-pile mandala, this time as a Thanksgiving. So there's a different way we handle the mandala, whether it's a request to receive something or an offering of Thanksgiving, and we learn how to do that. And lastly, the vow giver gives the instruction for the new vowed person to not advertise our vows to those with no faith. So you don't walk around, you know, with your badge, Bodhisattva, but you show your new behavior, right? You show off your vows through your behavior, meaning we don't impose our vowed behavior on anybody else. That's what it means to not advertise your vows. You know, killing's a bad thing. You should be vegetarian, right? How well is that going to go over? Versus, you want to come for dinner? If you don't mind, we're going to eat all vegetarian, and not to worry, we'll feed you enough. And then give a nice dinner, vegetarian. And that's all. You don't have to say anything else. It plants seeds. It gives a positive uplifting influence. And sooner or later, some of those people that you've positively uplifted and influenced will come to you and say, how do you know how to do that? You know, did you learn somehow? Like, what is it you're up to? And then, yeah, you got 20 years, I'll teach you everything I know. Right? Or just start with the pen. So it's an important piece of receiving our bodhisattva vows to be instructed. It's not that we keep them secret, it's that, right, you're not talking about them, you're not advertising them, you're just showing them by your behavior. And lastly, you have a party. So we didn't say that you also put out a little table of party snacks, but we can and we should, because it is worth celebrating. One or more people have just declared themselves on their road to the end of all suffering for everybody. That should be celebrated in some way. So you're allowed to sing and dance and have some snacks and enjoy each other to end the ceremony. And then, ta-da, Bob's your uncle. So that is class 3. You are now experts in how to receive and give bodhisattva vows. Well, almost. You haven't seen the ceremony yet, but it's coming. All right, so remember that person we wanted to be able to help? We've learned a lot, actually, that we will use sooner or later to help them stop their suffering forever. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. All your past yous that made the goodness for all this that we are learning. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close, to continue to guide you, inspire you, help you, and then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So you use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one other. to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with the wisdom of loving kindness, sharing it with others. And may it be so. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity to share. Stopping recording.